feel like I got arrested with this light.
Oh my God, that's so scary. No.
Oh, well, he took off the solid, so he just said he was calling for Mo. Listen, I'll come back if you need me.
We don't want to see that.
You.
We don't want to see that.
Nah, we're good, Mo. We're good. Hang it up, dude.
What's up, everybody? This is MLS. I'm thrilled today to be joined by Kaylin Carr, Bradley Wright-Phillips, Mo Doohan. We got Taylor Twellman joining us in just a little bit. What a massive week ahead. We've got the Euros, Copa America, the Olympics, Match Day 20. And you know what? We gave Sasha Kleshton the week off because let's just take a look. TST down in Cary, North Carolina. Were you guys watching?
Some games.
Following along?
Fun tournament.
All right, so Sasha tracking
can't be
back,
Sasha
tracking
in
Look at
back
that pace. Look at
his
that.
side against NYCFC. He had good pace there, Brad.
That was terrible.
And this is a celebration when NYCFC moved on, and that's the reaction
Could never be that.
from his former Orlando City teammate.
Could never be
They got
that.
multiple angles of it. They got multiple angles.
Sasha, why are you
bruh.
shaking his hand? Is what I'm trying to work out.
What would you do, Nani runs up to you?
I'll run
like
towards
that?
him. If I saw somebody running towards me like that, I'm running towards him. I'm going to test him. Don't run at me like that.
Well, we didn't show Sasha's defense. He looked like Tyler Adams tracking back. I couldn't even believe it was him by the sideline. Shut down Nani, and then I think he gave him a little bit of the crying emoji when Nani took a dive. So I think that it was a little more complicated than that. We didn't show the highlight, just the low light. So I got you, Sash.
Yeah, Sasha, we have your back. Why are we just showing the low light? That's so shady from the control room back there. But Sasha and I had one thing in common, except not being off this week. We're both chasing around Nani.
I can't believe you're talking to that guy after that.
Well, I said to him before this, how could you do that to Sasha, mess with him like that?
We got back our boy.
Yeah, got it.
Hey, but that's that thing about karma. You know, it always comes back to bite you.
Hey, Mo,
You know what I mean?
Mo, you're right there because there's one thing, Sasha. Don't poke the bear. You poke the bear,
Don't
now you're
poke
giving
him.
someone like that with that personality to come and get in your face. It's your fault.
And then he had to flex with his shirt off like that too.
I was gonna say
Come on,
there wasn't a
man.
highlight where he had his shirt
Yeah.
on the whole trip. I was like,
I mean,
TST.
I'll be honest. A lot of guys down at TST couldn't take their shirts off looking like that. I'll be honest.
Sure.
I think
in good shape.
Nani's trying to show off some of the beer bellies running around down at TST. All right, let's. Mo's looking at me. Let's talk a little bit about Match Day 20 coming up. We've got the Philadelphia Union hosting Inter Miami. And we've talked about it all year. How will Miami fare without some of these key international call-ups? 3 starters, Lionel Messi, Luis Suárez, Rojas, the guts of this attack on international duty. Mo, what's the best approach?
Well, first of all, you can't feel sorry or sympathy for this Miami team.
I don't
mean,
feel
they've
sorry
been
for them.
smart leading up. Yeah, they've been smart leading up to this point. They've been racking up the points, getting results, knowing that this moment was going to come where they're going to lose some of their big superstars. But for Tata Martino, he has to prioritize defending now. And that's defending in every phase of the game. That's rest defending, that's transition defense, that's set pieces, because that's where we've seen this Miami team be vulnerable. In the last 2 games, they conceded 6 goals. Both of those games were at home. 12 times this season, they've given up the first goal, but they've had superstars in Messi, Suárez, etc. to bail them out. And by the way, 7 of those goals they gave up were in the first 15 minutes of game. So for Tata Martino, he has to get down to them being a team that's foundationally better defensively. They still have attacking prowess and power, even without Messi, Suárez, the likes in their lineup, and we've seen them score goals without some of those guys featuring. But if they can get back to being, if they can get to being a team that's defensively sound, that's going to shift the mentality of the group as well, because there's a tendency when you have a superstar in your team to always feel like he can bail you out of trouble. Well, that superstar in Lionel Messi is not there now, so they have to collectively be a lot better defensively, guys.
I have to agree with Mo. They've been allowed to take liberties defensively because of the 2 superstars in Messi. I played for Red Bull with Thierry Henry, luckily, and we done the same thing. Earlier in my career there, I knew you could just give the ball to him and you had a game changer. And then when you go into games when he wasn't there, you think you could do the same things. But after a while, you have to pull together. Your mentality has to change. He's not here. So we all have to run for each other. We all have to take charge of creating chances, getting shots off, defending as a team. So you have to change that mindset. Otherwise, you're going to get battered week in, week out.
Busquets and Alba will be there. Perhaps the hardest hit team in MLS with international call-ups is the Philadelphia Union. Kaylin, How do Philly best get through the summer when you look at this list?
That's going to be difficult, and you think sometimes the young players are going to help you through this, but you can see the U23s, those are important pieces for this team with McGlynn and Harriel, and then you go across the list, Gazdag's important.
Go Hungary at the Euros.
Blake's still injured, but I think that's a piece of it too, is they've gotten players and done good scouting, but maybe from countries where they're important pieces, and so now you lose that. Not to mention that this team has not been good on the road at home. That's rare for them. The defense hasn't been there. Andre Blake's still out injured. And then the biggest piece of it now is Julian Carranza, who ironically they got from Inter Miami and turned into a star. Now it looks like reports coming out that he is going to go to Feyenoord potentially as soon as right away. And his contract ends this December. So he's been the one piece that is their star, that they can lean on, that player that you mentioned, Brad, that it can bail you out of a game or keep you in one at least. And now the fact that they might lose him is really worrying sign for Jim Curtin and Philadelphia.
That's 46 goals in the last 3 years they're losing. And Philly are a team that they play, all their games are in the balance. So you need a Carranza, you need a Gazdag, and him possibly going is going to be big problems for them. The one positive I would say, if they've had a break. Now, I don't know if you, Mo, Kalen, when you have these breaks, it's a chance to get to the finer details. Defensively, how you want to play, attacking football, and just really iron those details out, so maybe they can use that as a positive.
New York
City.
City.
The other part with the break, guys,
Mm-hmm.
the other part with the break, Brad, you brought that up, is sometimes you need that mental chance to just disconnect. Because, we always think as players, as competitors, you lose a game or a result doesn't go your way, the best thing for you is to have a game in quick succession so you can go right those wrongs. Well, when those wrongs start to compile one after another, sometimes it's like, all right, I need that game. I need that breakaway from that game to try to have a refresh, to get a restart, clear your head, get away from some of that toxicity, and then have a chance to come back and build from there. So maybe the break, and hopefully the break, will serve this group of players and Jim Curtin well coming up.
Agreed.
Let's talk about third in the East. New York City FC taking on seventh in the East, the Columbus Crew. This is what happens when you win a championship. The stock of the players, but the stock of the front office also goes up. Tim Bezbatchenko, president and general manager, moving on. Brad, what do you expect from Issa Tall, who's sliding in for him?
I expect good things. I think he's worked closely with Tim, over the last few years. But Issa was the one that, took charge of finalizing the new training facility, the stadium, assembled the Crew, Columbus Crew second team. We've seen how successful they've been. It's a very smart man who has gained experience from working with Tim. I don't see much going too wrong or in a different direction. The one thing I'd say they do miss it with Tim is he was very good at coercing players into coming to Columbus Crew. I remember I wasn't thinking about going to Columbus. I had some other options at 35, and just getting on the phone with him, the way he recruits, the game plan he has, the idea for you as a player and for the club is second to none.
What do you say?
Get yourself here. There's some decent money here for you.
Okay.
So it's all about the money.
Okay.
So it's all about the money is what I'm hearing.
I love that he made it just seem like, oh yeah, you can.
I don't want to say his secrets. I don't want to tell you his secrets.
Bradley Wright Phillips.
Very
I mean, when you look at it, Cucho Hernandez, Lucas De La Rayana are Tim Bezbatchenko signings. And I mentioned when a team wins, we saw it, Mo, with Atlanta United and Darren Eales moving on back to the Premier League after their championship season, that everyone then wants a piece of it. Well, this is one now of a number of key signings in the front office for Columbus. So now is there a drop-off that this squad has to worry about in a couple of years?
I'd be worried about it. I'd be worried about it sooner than later. And the other piece that's rumored to be leaving is Aiden Morris. Middlesbrough has come in and showed interest towards him. So if they lose Aiden Morris, he is such a key part of that middle of midfield. And I understand the system with Wilfred Nancy, but sometimes you need that destroyer, that player that can jump lanes, win balls, get forward in the attack. I mean, he's just been tremendous. So you understand why that interest is going to come. But for these things to hit all at once, makes me a little bit nervous for Columbus, who I had set for maybe a rise through the table to maybe push to the top 4 places. And now you're starting to have a little bit more question marks emerge.
I would just say, and I agree with what both of you have said so far, but for Issa Tall, I feel like he's been groomed to be in this position, first and foremost. Like Brad was saying, he's worked under Tim Bezbatchenko, worked closely with him, and through the different tiers throughout this club. At times, sometimes less is more. So I'm not expecting him to come in and do something dramatic or, try to initially lay his stamp on this group, this team, this organization in day one. Right now, yeah, you may lose Aiden Morris. Okay, that's a big piece, and it seems like they have a player already coming in, and I would expect that that's a player they've already been recruiting. This isn't an Issa Tall specific signing. But I would expect for him, his first task is to just maintain what's going on right now. Because right now, they're in a good run of form. They've tied down Wilfred Nancy to a longer contract. They have a group of players that have experienced success, that are still hungry and ambition. The core of this group are at some really good ages as well. So to me, it's about maintaining and not having a significant drop-off, first and foremost, on the pitch. And then it's from there, how does he build? How does he continue to incorporate young players through the academy system, into the MLS Next Pro team, into the first team? How does his scouting look from there on? But in this early stage, to me, it's more so about how do you just maintain and steady the ship, because Columbus, in my mind, are still in a good position.
The reigning champions. They'll be taking on New York City FC, who's just 6 points off the lead in the Eastern Conference and has been having a ton of success despite the way that this season started. But the big problem continues to be, Kaylin, the striker position. 2 goals all year from their number 9s. How much is this team being held back by having no consistent number 9?
Not too much. If you look at where they are on the table, for my opinion, I think a big part of that has been the team has been made up by the defense. That's been the strong piece. Matt Freese, Thiago Martins. I think that back line has been really strong. And then they've had the emergence of Santi Rodriguez, who's done a really fantastic job of stepping up. But that front 3 has been kind of interchangeable. They've tried Munsif Bakrar, who I think they'd like to take the number 9 position, but it hasn't quite clicked. Alonso Martinez, I think, deserves a start. I think he deserves a run. He's only got 400 minutes. We saw on that board 6 goals. That's quite the return. I think they like him off the bench, but at this point, I think he deserves a chance to start. But I think it's going to be, throughout the rest of the season, a competition, and more than anything, I think it's going to continue to be a rotation.
Can you have a rotating number 9 and take down teams like Cincinnati and Miami?
You wouldn't like to, right? You'd want the number 9 to be solidified, the guy that's getting goals every week. My heart's in. I got two kind of thoughts on this.
Because you're not trying to be a rotating number 9.
No, not at all. It's my heart telling me go with Bakrar, because I've seen what he's gone through this season. You know he desperately wants to score goals. When he scored that goal, was it against a Red Bull? What that meant to the squad, the coach, you know that he wants to get goals, but he's not producing. So then you look at Martinez, he's got, 6 goals in 10 games. That's striker's numbers. So I think he has to get a chance at playing the number 9, even though he's not a natural number 9, he's finishing like he is. So my heart tells me Bakrar, just because I feel for him with that strikers union, but I think Martinez has got to take the reins and let's see if he can get it done, because you mentioned it's not affecting them, but imagine what the ceiling could be if they get somebody scoring regularly.
You thought New York City climbed up the table quick. What about Charlotte FC? I feel like I blanked it. All of a sudden, they are in 5th place in the Eastern Conference. How much are you believing in Charlotte?
I am, and I'm believing in them a lot, because defensively they are sound. If you compare their clean sheets, they're up there with LAFC. So if you can just get a real goal scorer, I feel like I'm always harping on about goal scorers, but this is how important they are. They're not around the top of the table because they don't have someone that's scoring consistently, but they're up at the top of the table with defensive plays, clean sheets. So I just know there's a real building block there for them to be successful. If they have a decent summer with signings, we could be talking about Charlotte, with a playoff run.
Charlotte has given up the 4th lowest amount of goals in the league, 18, but then, Mo, they've scored 18 in 17 games. Is that going to do anything for you?
Yeah, no, not for me, but No, the way that Brad finished his statement is what I think is the most important part for this Charlotte squad, and that's being ambitious in the transfer market. Dean Smith came in, and he's like, Capetti, you're not really my guy. Swiderski, yeah. So to me, it's about go out there and sign some profile of attacking pieces that can elevate you, because as Brad said, foundationally, defensively, they look good, right? They know how to hold their own. They know how to limit goals being scored against them, limit chances. But on the opposite end is where you got to start. That's how you take that step to being a team that's okay and respected, to being a team that's actually a contender and competing for something.
Exactly.
Dean Smith at the helm of this squad. They brought in, what's the kid name? Abada, right? And it's weird because right now, yes, he's made them look a little bit better in the attacking phase of the game. But without being disrespectful, if I compare him to some of the other players, your standout players, your go-to guys on teams in the East, he's a TAM-type player, right? I would say on some of the other top teams in the East, he would be a TAM-type player. And again, that's no slight to him, but more so it's me reinforcing the fact that I think this Charlotte squad in the transfer market need to and should go out there and just really take their attacking prowess to the next level by bringing in some big-time players who you're expecting to score 12 to 15 goals a season.
Sorry, Kalen, quickly. I couldn't agree with you more on the Abada conversation. I feel like he's a good player, good movement off the ball, but he should be your third best attacker. If you get a really good number 10 and then a proper number 9, then that front three or attacking group start to look like a proper side.
Yeah, and I think they will go out as far as that ambition. I think they will spend. We've seen them. And even just moving on from designated players, they have to find a solution for Suárez, whose loan wasn't picked up, so they have to get him to clear up a DP spot. But I think they do need 2 players because, as you mentioned, 18 goals is not enough. Abada's more of a secondary or third chance creator, but that number 10 position would be where I would look first. Ajiman is a good striker, but I think probably needs to drop a level to get that high-end quality if they want to really push for championships. But I think Charlotte do have the ambition to go out there and add to it. And if you have that defensive structure already, Tim Ream also mentioned on TAM potentially coming back to make that back line even better than it already is. So they could actually be a real player if they get this transfer window right to push towards the back half of the season.
You can see Charlotte FC take on DC United 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on MLS Season Pass. Let's talk now about the Colorado Rapids taking on Austin FC. Just 1 point separating 6th place Austin from 8th place Colorado. Who needs this game more?
Well, if you're asking me,
yes,
Austin.
I'm asking you.
I mean, yeah, Austin. You're coming off of back-to-back losses. You lost versus Portland 2-0 at home, and then you went to Salt Lake. Granted, Salt Lake, I mean, probably one of the teams of the season, top of the West, but you got humbled 5-1. That's 0 wins in the last 3 games. So Austin need this result more. This is now the 4th season for Josh Wolf as manager and this Austin FC team. And to me, that says you have a clear understanding of the players that you have, a clear understanding of how you want your team to perform, who can contribute, who can't. There's a better sense of expectation in my mind from an Austin team because of that, because of the tenure that Josh Wolf has had with this organization, with this group of players. I look at Colorado, yeah, they were ambitious in the market this season, but it's year 1. You're still trying to figure out, did you make the right moves? Is Chris Armas, is he finding the right way to get these players to perform on a consistent basis? So I expect some ups and downs with their team. But from an Austin standpoint, although my expectations coming into the season weren't very high for them, this is their opportunity now to get back into the winning column. And more than that, to show that what we've seen from them this season isn't an overperformance, but more so a reflection of what this group truly is capable of.
No. Colorado need this game more. I think, no, honestly, because I look at Colorado, I look at Austin. I'm more serious about Colorado's chances of doing anything in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. This is Austin's best period, I think, during the season, throughout this season so far. And they're only 2 points or a point ahead of Colorado. Colorado are going through like a bumpy stage. It's like growing pains with Chris Armas. But that's a team that I can see the philosophy. I can see what they're trying to do week in, week out. They have young players playing well week in, week out. I just think it's a more serious end to the season for Colorado than it is for Austin.
I'm not so sure about that. I just think so much of what you can do in the playoffs depends on the seeding. And I think neither of these teams are going to do much if they're not able to get a good seed in the playoffs. And Austin have the better chance of that right now. And I agree with Mo in the sense of coming off 5-1 loss is big. And I don't care. I know it's against Salt Lake, but you have a break. That's a lot of time to think about it. And we've seen this Austin team slide and regress, as you mentioned, Mo. So they need to curb that. They need to be very careful in this point because they're only 2 points away from being outside the playoffs and 3 points away from the top 5. So this is kind of a teetering team for me that needs to get back on track. I think Colorado is more on a steady climb. They're going to sort of be in and around that playoff position, whereas Austin, for me, sometimes can be,
that's what I'm saying.
Hey, they could be in the top 4 or we could be way outside and just tank, as we've seen in the past. So they need to figure this out. I think this is a bigger one for them in that case.
Chris Armas still your coach of the year right now in mid-June?
Not right now. We'll talk about it off air.
Okay, gotcha. That's not what the people. That's not what the good people of This Is MLS want to hear. Let's move on to Orlando City taking on LAFC to start the year. These were 2 of the heavy hitters that we all thought were going to be at the top of the table. LAFC is second in the West, but Orlando City 11th place in the Eastern Conference. This side has not scored a goal at Exploria Stadium since April 3rd, shut out in 3 straight home games. You can't be doing that, Mo. How do you fix your attack?
April 3rd, huh? Today is what, June 12th when we're making this recording. That's some time. That's some time. Well, how do you fix this? You know, the crazy part to me, guys, is that I didn't think that Mauricio Pereira leaving or not re-signing with Orlando was going to have this significant of a role. But it's clear that that has played a big role for this team. His double-digit assists from the last couple of years is lacking. But the ultimate failure for this organization right now is their DPs are not hitting whatsoever. I mean, you look at they've only scored 2 goals in the last 5 games. Facundo Torres has 1 goal. That's only his 2nd goal of the season. And the other one is coming from an MLS Next Pro graduate in Jack Lynn. So the biggest concern is how do you right this wrong with the DPs? Because with Muriel, 2 goals on the season. They both came in the same game against Philly. Facundo Torres just has 2 goals. And their other DP, Martino Hayda, 0 goals on the year. He's not even playing. Combined, their DPs have less goals than a player they weren't anticipating even having this season in Duncan McGuire. So for Oscar Pereira, he must be pulling his hair out because he's tried different tactics. He's tried playing with 2 strikers. He's tried a variety of different formation and tactical nuances to try to get the best out of these players. But the DPs at the moment, guys, they're just not hitting whatsoever.
Yeah, Mo, imagine, too, what it would look like without Duncan McGuire, who was supposed to go to Blackburn. They were happy to move on from him to make that move, and they said, hey, we're going to bring in Muriel with 0 goals, as you mentioned. He has 5 goals now on the season. They don't have to imagine what it's going to be like without him because he's gone already. He's with the U.S. Olympic team. And so now they're going from Jill, as you mentioned, not scoring a goal in months. And he was their one guy that could score to now not having him. So you've seen Oscar Pereira sort of drop the line a little bit deeper to be more defensively sound, but then haven't been able to get goals. But if they open up and try to push, they're going to start leaking goals again. So they're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place where that balance is off.
It's a tall task against this LAFC side. The other LA team, the LA Galaxy, hosting Sporting Kansas City, 12th in the Western Conference. We saw what Sporting Kansas City could do last year with these 3, Alan Pulido, Johnny Russell, and Daniel Shalaway. It may not have happened during the regular season, but the run that they made, taking down top of the West St. Louis City, it was these 3 that are clicking. How much can this front 3 do it again? Mo.
Well, those numbers there, Jill, are pretty indicative of the form and where this team is currently. It's funny because those numbers there say 3 goals for Johnny Russell. He had 2 he scored in the last game against Seattle. So coming into that Seattle match, their front 3 has scored less goals than Raul Ruidiaz. He had 7 goals coming into that match. And by the way, this is the Raul Ruidiaz we're all talking about saying, yeah, he's past it. Seattle need to start figuring out a way to move on from him, and yet he had more goals in their whole front 3. So, yeah, I do think for this team to have any chance of getting back to being at their best, that front 3 has to click. But the bigger concern, guys, is this team defensively. They've conceded 32 goals so far this season. That's 3rd worst in the whole league. They've lost 17 points from winning positions, which is the worst in the league as well. So, yeah, against Seattle, they showed some character. They went down a goal. They found a way to get back. But ultimately, they've just been criminal in terms of the chances that they've given up, the goals that they've given up. We were talking to Peter Vermees before that match against Seattle, and a rebuild is needed and a rebuild is coming. It has to start this summer. The ownership group has mentioned a 3-window process to try to reshape this team. But that process has to start this summer. But when you look at the players that they do currently have, the one guy that I'm looking to see more minutes from is Elenis Vargas. He came off the bench and he scored the game winner ultimately in that game against Seattle. But he's just a little bit different. I don't know if you guys feel the same way about him. He's young. He's really energetic. He's direct, good pace. And straight away, when he came into that game against Seattle, you saw the change in his intention. He was very direct. He earned the 2nd yellow card for Reed Baker-Whiting and ultimately went on to score the game winner. But ultimately, this team needs change, and they need to freshen up in terms of personnel. And I think that has to start this summer.
I couldn't agree with Mo more, especially with the Vargas case. When I look at the front 3, the numbers, the stats are embarrassing for the quality of those 3 players.
That's been the guts of this team for so long.
It's ridiculous. Those shouldn't be the numbers, but it screams to me that time's up. Because there's no competition. There's no competition for spots. Russell, Shalaway, Pulido know if they're fit, they're playing. So there's no incentive to go out and play well. And I don't want to be talking like I know, what's going on over there and what Peter Vermees is planning. But to me, when I look at them, and I've played against these players, and they've given my teams nightmares, and I look at them on the weekend, and they're just not the same. There needs to be more competition in the whole squad for that team because they're just not showing up.
Yeah, and sometimes it is just giving Vargas a chance. I did his game in Toronto. He came off the bench and scored, and some of it's similar, just pushing by a guy or being direct, sometimes being young, a little bit naive. played with guys where you just don't know any better. You just play free, and that's what I see from him. But if they're going to go through a rebuild, I would be curious what they do with that number 10 position, because that's also been a glaring hole for me. When I think of Sporting Kansas City at their best, even in the past, it was Benny Feilhaber pulling the strings from that position, or even last year, Gadi Kinda against St. Louis, the way he was able to grab the ball. They've tried Eric Tommy there in positions and stretches, but he's not really a true number 10. He likes to drift wide in other positions, so they've had Polito drop deep and played Agata up top as the number 9. So that number 10 position, I don't think has been solved. And when Vermees and Sporting Kansas City have been at their best, they've had a great number 10.
Kaylin, when you leave here today, you're going to be making your way to Gillette Stadium for the New England Revolution taking on the Vancouver Whitecaps. And I have a news flash. The Revs have strung together back-to-back wins for the first time this season. Is this the turnaround that Caleb Porter has been waiting for?
You're going to do this right before I go to Gillette?
Yes.
Come on.
I got to hear this.
I want to hear it.
Oh, looking very interested over here. No, I don't think this is the beginning of a climb to think about where this team was with this man, Carlos Hill. Had a Supporter Shield record-breaking season 2 years ago. It feels like a decade. That's how bad it's been for this team. But yes, they need a foothold. They need anything. Going on the road to Nashville was a good result. And then, beating a undermanned New York Red Bull side, you have to take the points as they come. The one positive part for me, at least from them, has been some of the changes that they've made. Dave Romney coming back into the team, seeming to starting to win the trust of Caleb Porter, who, it's sort of strange for me that he ever fell out of the lineup. I think he's a really underrated defender, but his partnership with Arriaga has been really good. And then Ivicic coming off another good performance. So that defensive solidity is there, at least. Barrero back in the lineup. So there's reasons for optimism. The number 9 position is still an issue for me. Vrioni, they have a big decision about what to do with him during this transfer window. I don't think it's just all about stories of players coming into MLS. I think, as we've seen Charlotte, Minnesota go out and make difficult decisions with their designated players to move on from them, and how that can actually change a team. So I think some tough decisions ahead for Porter and New England. If they want to really get out of this hole, I think more changes need to come.
If we're just answering the question, though, is it a turnaround? Yes, because they were awful, through the beginning of the season. And I spoke
is it the turnaround, I guess, is the better
Exactly.
question.
So I'm not going to go that far.
Right.
But they had to play Nashville away. And while they haven't been the Nashville we know of last season, it's not an easy place to go. You play a weaker Red Bull team, but you have to win those games. And they've done it. So now they can build confidence from those wins and go on, take it game by game. Because the toughest thing to do is win when you've been losing. It's really difficult, especially when you get down to the end of the game. Players start to get nervous, you change formations, and you can end up throwing games away. They didn't do that, so we have to give them credit.
Show one, you called the Vancouver Whitecaps your dark horse.
Yep.
How are your little dark horses doing?
They're starting to turn that corner again. I think they're unbeaten the last 2. They had a little rocky patch, but Vanny and the boys have got it together, and we're moving again. We're pushing up that table.
We're
moving, Mo.
He's on the squad, man.
I forget, what did Vanny promise you?
No, he just said anything. When I get there, free beers, free food, I'm still holding him to that.
Come up to Boston with me, man. We'll
Let's
have
go,
a
man.
night out.
Let's go.
My tried and true sticking around for some rapid reaction. Kalen Carr. Okay, Bradley Wright Phillips and Kalen Carr. Let's start off with Seattle versus Minnesota. Bradley, the Sounders going for win number 2. That's it at Lumen Field.
It's tough, and they're back at home after a 2-1 loss to SKC. They're 1-5. It's not been good enough from them, but they are halfway through the season. And if it's any time to kick on, it's now. I look at Rodan, I look at Jordan Morris, and I look at Rusnak to drive that attack and start picking up results. They welcome in Minnesota, who are going to be without Tani Oluwaseyi. But Eric Ramsey has done a good job of throwing anyone out there and them getting the job done. He can play different formations, and he makes it tough for the opposition anywhere he goes, home or away. Robin Lod, Pookie probably back as well.
Lod an all-star for you? Did you put him on your ballot?
Yes, 100%.
So did I. Okay. Minnesota looking to spoil what's going to be the Sounders' 50th anniversary game. 50 years as a franchise, historic across North America. Kalen Carr, the New York Red Bulls hosting Nashville SC.
Yeah, Red Bulls need a bounce-back game, and losing on the road to New England, missing players, and we saw a little bit of a picture of what it looked like last year, honestly, without Emil Forsberg, without Lewis Morgan. The quality, the ideas, the new philosophy from Sancho Schwartz was not in a possibility. It just wasn't there for them, so they have to try to figure out to get back on track against a Nashville team. Have to get a little bit more possession and moments, and then when they can, those striker positions, Van Zier and Elias Manuel, have to be able to step up and get a little bit more of the game and not just rely, because I think we saw before a bit of a regression on the Nashville side. Still question marks for me as far as who's available for them. Walker Zimmerman, who had come back into the team, that's where we saw them get back better, now out with the Olympic squad. So that's a big miss. Schaffelberg as well with the Canada national team. So you go through the list. Godoy also, Shaq Moore. So a number of missing pieces there for both sides. So you kind of comes down to grit, which I think in some ways fits the identity of both teams.
It'll be missing pieces as well for Atlanta United. This is their first match since parting ways with manager Gonzalo Pineda and some of his staff. Interim manager Rob Valentino stepping in now for his second stint when they take on Houston.
Yeah, but a perfect time for the break for Atlanta United, because anytime you go through a really difficult stretch, which it has been for them, they've looked unrecognizable. They've looked lost at times. So sometimes you make the move, Pineda's gone, and the players get a break. They clear their heads, and then Valentino, who's been in charge before and had success, I think that's a big factor as far as having the trust of this group. He doesn't need to win the locker room. He already has that understanding between them. But then the other big question is, what's up with Giacomakis? Is he going to go to Cruz Azul? It seems like it. It looks likely. So a lot of questions. The one thing I think, as far as simplifying, is to be a little bit more direct at times. That's the best version of Atlanta United we've seen over the years, is going end to end. You've seen on those sidelines, Jill, how
I have run up and down those sidelines trying to.
So I think that's the path for them. And then for Houston, they've been surprisingly good on the road. And Ben Olsen has this team humming, had a good game against Portland, got a result there. So now going again on turf to Atlanta United. Hector Herrera has gotten stronger for me, coming back off that knee surgery that takes a little bit of time to get sorted out. So him and Carrasquilla have a big role to play. But I actually think Houston have a really good shot on the road in this one.
North of the border in Canada, you got Montreal hosting Real Salt Lake, top of the West. Bradley, how do you feel these two match up?
Two teams in totally different places. You look at Montreal, they will be playing at home, but just had to deal with injuries upon injuries. Cockroach, Joseph Martinez, I think Ville-Saint recently. So they're struggling, but then Ibrahim Sanusi comes in, starts getting goals. Bright spot for me, him one, and then you look at Chouanier has been a big part of that team, and when they get results, how they get results. But then you go to RSL. And right now, yeah, we play in the league with Messi, but they got the best player in the league up to now. Amazing to watch in Arango. Supporting cast of Gomez, Luna. They're just a fabulous team to watch. But more impressive for me is them against the ball. We've seen what they can do with the ball, exciting play, but against the ball, every player knows their role. Every player is willing to work back. And I think this is going to be an exciting matchup. It's a chance to see Montreal get back on track, and a chance to look at what we've been looking at all season from RSL.
Montreal hosts Real Salt Lake, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on MLS Season Pass. We've got a couple more important things to discuss, and for that, we welcome into this fine group Taylor Twellman. Taylor, have to ask you, big news at the end of last week with FC Dallas, currently 7 points out of a playoff position, parting ways with head coach Nico Estevez. Right move?
That's a difficult one, Jill. When you look at what FC Dallas and that roster has done this year, they've been injured. Their highest salaried players, highest paid players haven't performed at a high level. They went out and spent more money than they've ever spent in franchise history on a goal scorer, yet Velasco, their number one playmaker, is still not healthy. He wasn't supposed to be healthy, and they didn't go out and sign that. They now want to play three in the back. They don't go out and get a starting caliber center back. They're now relying on Omar Gonzalez to be that guy. What was very interesting to me, gentlemen, is that when I watched the press conference, I heard a lot of different messaging, and almost as if Dan Hunt is telling the fan base and the season ticket holders, we've got the best roster we've ever had here. We're just not putting the players in the right spots to succeed. And I'm looking at it saying Velasco's injured, so you can't count him as being part of the best roster. They haven't really had Jesus play at a high level at all. Paxton Pomacle's injured again. I don't know about you guys. It just feels a little unjust for Nico, because I'm not totally sure the roster is completely healthy or completely fit to what he wanted to do. So I'm not totally sure it was the right move, or should I say a fair move.
It can come across a little harsh, but just for me personally, I look at Dallas a lot and I'm like, I don't understand their ambition. I'm not sure what they're trying to do. Now, them getting rid of Estevez lets me know they're not happy for the reasons you said. They go out and spend money, they get a goal scorer in, and you imagine those two, Petter Musa and Ferreira up front together. You can only fantasize that's going to be amazing. It hasn't happened. They haven't performed. They sit second from bottom of the table. I like it because it lets me know they're trying to do something. They're not happy with where they are.
What's the right path forward, Mo? Because they made the playoffs the 2 previous seasons with Estevez in charge.
But to Taylor's point, that also featured a team that included Velasco, who is a young, exciting player that brings a different dynamic to that attack. It also allows other players to shine because he takes on some of the burden and the responsibility in the final third. So I do look at that Dallas side and say he's a big piece missing. To Bradley's point about the ambition, the urgency, the level of expectation that this ownership group expects, that's what this firing says to me. Is there a little bit of an element to maybe he needed more time with some players coming back from injury, or time for their striker to settle, for him to figure out the best tactics to get the best out of the likes of a Ferreira, who in years previous was one of their talismans, one of the guys that you turned to when you needed goals. They rewarded him with a bigger contract. So I can see both sides of the equation, but ultimately when I look at this hiring going forward, this decision going forward, the biggest thing now is who comes in. Because it's easy to make a decision to get rid of a coach for results, for not being able to incorporate the academy players and bring them through. But then again, are the academy players ready? So there's different ways to look at that part. But now who's the right player, right manager who fits the profile to get the best out of this group of players is $1 million question for this organization. And at this point in time, I'm not sure what profile manager is ideal for this group.
I don't know either. I agree.
Dan Hunt did say in his press conference that it is an audition for interim manager Peter Lucen. So we'll see how that all plays out and if Dallas can work their way into a playoff position. Also, big news with San Diego FC signing their first designated player. The rumors have been swirling, but it is finally official. A rumored $12 million transfer fee for Chucky Lozano making his way to San Diego FC. 4-time league champion. He won Serie A with Napoli, scored in the 2022 World Cup, and now he has taken his talents to sunny San Diego. Brad, what kind of numbers are you expecting from Chucky?
Oh, it's a tough question because if I'm just looking at how we view things in the MLS and a DP player I'm expecting from a player of his caliber, I need to see double figure, 20 plus goal contributions. Whether I think he'll get that, I'm not sure. I think he's more of a, I'd say 7 and 7. That's what I expect from him, depending who they bring in. I don't see him as the most dangerous and clinical goal scorer, more a provider and getting on the end of plays. But he's going to have a lot of expectancy.
Brad, 7 and 7.
I would take that.
What number did you say they spent? 12 million?
12.
12 million on a player. Your first DP signing. To me, this feels like LAFC when they brought in Vela, right? Mexican international. So he's gonna. Let me just finish, right? The expectation from this ownership group in making this signing is he's not only going to deliver on the pitch but off the field as well. But I just go back to Vela's tenure in MLS, and yeah, they are different players. I would agree with that. I think Vela's more capable to drop deeper and connect plays, to be a facilitator as a number 10. But ultimately, the profile and the expectation of him to carry the weight of this team, I think is there, and it should be expected of him of Chucky Lozano. I look at Vela's numbers over his tenure in any season where he played or started more than 20 games. He's having over 20 goal contributions. His first season, 14 and 13. His last season, 9 and 12. That 9 and 12 season, we kind of looked at it and said, oh, he's coming. Is his age catching up to Vela? And he still delivered 9 and 12. So for you to say 7 and 7, for me, the expectation for Chucky Lozano has got to be that 20 to 25 goal contribution. 20 to 25 goal contribution. And I do agree with you, though. He needs the right pieces around him. Taylor, I know you would agree with that. He needs the right pieces around him. I think he's a good starting point, especially it's clear what their target audience is with San Diego now with this signing. But they've got to have a talisman number 9 goal scorer in place. They've got to have some creative players in midfield to play him through balls and to play in transition. But I look at him still, and I have big expectations. If Christian Espinoza can have 13 and 13 last season, you're telling me 7 and 7 is good enough? I'm
not saying it's good enough. I'm telling you, don't be surprised if they're the numbers come into the season if they don't get the right pieces. I've seen it. I'm like you. I look at him, I think you have to get these numbers, 20 plus. But I'm not sure it will work out that way. He's never been the big man on his team. Go on, Taylor.
No. You just took the words right out of my mouth, Bradley. He's never been the guy. Mo said it a little bit. He's not Carlos Vela. Listen, the reason why Carlos Vela blew the doors off this league, and anyone that gets it mixed up is got it twisted, is the fact that Bob Bradley set that team up to be on the front foot. That team was one of the exciting teams that came into the league. Diego Rossi was on the other side of the field. One of the fastest, quickest players, most vertical players. They played with Urania as a 9. They didn't. Diamande came in. Then they were exciting. A lot depends on what San Diego does. What's the identity of this team? How are they going to play? Chucky Lozano is a class player. I'm not saying anything other than that. But what I am saying is that if the manager comes in and they sit in and defend in a low block and try to sneak out results out of that manner, then Mo, it may be 7-7, but you spend $12 million on a player, first and foremost for the profile. That profile is for Southern California, for San Diego. The best Mexican international right now in this moment is now playing in Major League Soccer, is playing in San Diego. That's why the $12 million's there. But on the field, I have a lot of questions. I want to see what the manager is. I want to see what the style is. We've seen 2 other signings. Those are of Scandinavian interest, which is very interesting. But Bob Bradley set LAFC up to blow the doors off the league, and they did, and Carlos Vela was the face of that. I'm intrigued to see what this team is in San Diego, because with that connection to Scandinavia, with the Right to Dream program, how many young players are going to come from there? I think there's a lot of moves that still need to happen for me to fully know what Chucky Lozano is going to do in that first year.
But Taylor, to me, and I agree with a lot of what you said there, the biggest part being the manager is key, right?
Yeah.
But if you sign Chucky Lozano, to me, that says we're going to go bring out, we're going to go sign a manager that has the ambitions to put our marquee player in the best position to succeed. So a team that's going to play with the mindset of being on the front foot, be quick in transition, look to play through their wingers. And if they do that, I mean, why are we naive to say that we should expect a similar kind of contribution of a Denny Bouanga, for example?
Can't happen.
No,
right?
not at all.
He had 20 goals last year. That's a totally different call than what
Won't happen.
guy you're looking for, Brad.
It's 15 goals, 10 assists, guys. It's 15 goals, 10 assists. That's the barometer. That's what it has to be. However, all I'm saying is we reserve the right to look at a team and say, whoa, they're going to sit in and try to play in a low block. Then that has to change. But if it's Bob Bradley and they go out and get a 9, Mo, it's 15 and 10. Hands down. There's no argument other way.
We reserve the right. I like that.
We'll see what other big. Last show you were calling for Mo Salah.
Mo Salah, man, get him there.
Send him your message.
Mo, come to MLS. We'll treat you good here. Taylor will say lovely things about you.
I don't know if he's got 200 million net coming from him the way Saudi Arabia's going to give him. I'm not sure that's
true.
coming.
So that does it for our show. What? Go ahead, Mo.
What?
No, he took off the Salah, so he just said he was calling for Mo. Listen, I'll come back if you need me.
We don't want to see that.
You.
We don't want to see that.
No, we're good, Mo. We're good. Hang it up, dude.
We'll see you guys next week.